The last thing I remember clearly from that afternoon is the taste of metal on the air, a tang like struck pennies, sharp enough to make me lick my lips and wonder if they'd cracked. The sky had already begun to bruise, the moon dragging its ink across the sun, and whole neighborhoods gathered in driveways with cardboard glasses and potluck casseroles. I'd planned to spend the eclipse in my grandmother's back bedroom, where the curtains are drawn tight to keep her from mistaking daylight for dawn or dusk. But when the local radio crackled with news that the Midnight Sun Carnival had bloomed overnight at the abandoned fairgrounds, my resolve buckled. I'd grown up hearing rumors about that carnival, not the cotton candy pop-up that tours county lots, but the spectral one that arrives only when the moon corners the sun. My grandfather claimed he rode its carousel in 1954 and forgot the face of his commanding officer forever. Aunt Laurel said she traded away the memory of her first miscarriage just for the chance to win a goldfish that died before dawn. Every story ended the same. Someone walked away lighter, giggling, but unable to name what they'd surrendered. Only the hollowness proved they'd paid. I told myself I'd just drive by, maybe snap a picture for the scrapbook I keep for Grandma Rose. She loves fairgrounds. Used to volunteer at the ticket booth, back when the county hosted harvest festivals, instead of discount gun shows. Nowadays, her mind loses threads faster than I can knot them, and I record everything in a leather notebook so I can reweave her past and mine. That day, though, the eclipse drew me like tidewater, and the notebook stayed on the bedside table. Mason insisted on coming. He's the kind of best friend who calls every blown tire an adventure, and every detour a hymn. We turned onto the access road moments before the first bite was taken out of the sun, and there, in the low valley where kudzu had swallowed every shuttered ride years ago, the carnival gleamed, clean, new, impossible. Strings of light bulbs already glowed, though no generators hummed. From a distance, the bulbs looked ordinary. Up close, each filament shaped itself into a word that flickered between languages I couldn't name. A calliope exhaled a tune I recognized only as déjà vu. At the gate, a woman dressed like a ringmaster, red swallow-tailed coat, top hat pinned with a crescent brooch, extended a tin token tray. Instead of tickets, it held small glass marbles swirling with colors. She tapped one. Wonder, fear, comfort, shame. Choose. Choose for what? Mason asked. For passage, of course, she sang. One ride, one memory. She tilted her head as though listening to a private orchestra. You could also barter something fresher if you dare. I cradled a marble labeled Wonder. The letters floated like gold leaf inside a snow globe. The ringmaster's eyes never left my face. Take care, she whispered. Memories are slippery creatures. Once released, they find new hosts. We walked through a tunnel of mirrors that reflected not just our bodies, but every age we'd ever been. 7-year-old Ray skipped beside 29-year-old Ray, while Mason sprouted and shrank like a stop-motion film. At the tunnel's mouth, the reflections fled, each younger self snagging on its side of the silver glass. My stomach flipped. The air smelled of oranges and electric storms. The Ferris wheel loomed first. Its spokes were stained glass panels, and inside each gondola, the seats shimmered like pond water. The attendant, a boy with gray eyes too old for his freckled skin, accepted my wonder marble with a gloved hand, then asked softly, "Which one will you miss?" I didn't understand until I was halfway into the gondola. A film strip of nights at firefly-lit fields unspooled. My first kiss behind the bleachers. The stunned hush when the boy's lips touched mine. The way the world wolfed down its breath while I exhaled blossoms. I tried to lock the vision away, but the wheel lurched upward, and the memory dissolved, scattering like dandelion seeds. From the apex, the eclipse looked like a pupil swallowing an iris, shadows sharpened into blades. Below, Mason boarded the roller coaster named the Rewind. The ride burst forward, yet every track section appeared to coil backward, devouring itself. When he returned, his eyes were wet, his grin spectral. "I can't remember my mother's lullaby," he said, almost proudly, "but I swear I've never felt so free." We drifted deeper. Each attraction vibrated with an emotion for sale. The tilt a whirl of secrets, the hall of discarded futures, the sideshow of forgiven sins. People stumbled between stalls like jubilant revenants, pockets lighter, eyes star-bright. Some clutched prizes, paper cranes breathing like sparrows, snow globes holding silent thunderstorms, lollipops spinning miniature galaxies. I wondered if any patron had refused to ride and simply watched. Then I realized that might be the cruelest exchange of all, trading the memory of restraint for the certainty of regret. Halfway down the midway stood a booth shaped like an antique wardrobe. Its sign glimmered. The Memory Tailor. A woman with scissors fashioned from opal invited me inside. "We can hem the edges of sorrow," she coaxed. "Let joy out at the seams." She measured my wrist with a ribbon of shadow. "What grief drags your hem through mud?" My grandmother's face surfaced. The day she didn't know my name and called me the girl who brings tea. Her confusion was worse than any tantrum, because it was mild, polite, irrevocable. I pictured that moment stitched to my heart like a heavy button. Could the tailor snip it loose? But something inside resisted. I'd lose not just the ache, but the proof of love that birthed it. I backed away, nearly colliding with Mason, who was nibbling a candied apple that whispered compliments each time he bit. "You've traded enough," I told him. "We should go." He laughed. "Are you kidding? We have minutes before totality. That's when the real attractions open." The sky dimmed to charcoal. Crickets struck up a nocturne. The crowd hushed as the sun became a ring of fire. A hole punched through the world's lid. At that exact instant, Carnival lights brightened, exposing an avenue previously invisible. A gate parted to reveal something vast and humming. Above it hovered a banner stitched from night itself. The exitless maze for those who long to forget. Mason's breath hitched. "That's the one," he said. I seized his arm. "You don't know what you'll owe." He looked at me with sudden clarity. "Ray, I can't carry the weight of my father's fists anymore. If I leave that memory here, maybe I'll finally sleep." Before I could argue, an usher ushered him through. I glimpsed halls twisting like Mobius strips, echoing with voices that sounded like Mason at every age. Then the gate slammed. I waited, pacing the midway as the world cooled to false twilight. Vendors hawked forgetfulness like popcorn. A child punched a balloon and laughed when the balloon remained dented. A woman stroked a teddy bear that pulsed with someone else's heartbeat. Time felt syrupy. At last, Mason emerged. His expression was placid, almost newborn. "Are you okay?" I asked. He blinked. "Do we know each other?" The words knocked the wind from me. I tried reminding him of college dorms, of camping trips, of nights spent decoding constellations with cheap beer as our sextant. But his mind was an empty theater where the projector had been smashed. The ringmaster appeared beside me. "The maze charges by volume," she sighed, though her mouth curved, amused. He wanted to forget violence, so it drank every fist, every friend who witnessed those fists, every shelter visited afterward. Collateral damage, I'm afraid. I clutched Mason's shoulders. "Come on, let's get you home."
Home, he repeated, tasting the word like it was brand new candy. The path to the exit coiled past the carousel my grandfather once rode. Its music was slow, mournful. Instead of horses, memories bobbed up and down. A PTA recital, the aroma of cinnamon rolls, a marriage proposal in sign language. Patrons saddled these recollections, rising and falling until they blurred into anonymity. A thought stalked me. If I sacrificed the memory of Grandma Rose's decline, traded away her confusion, her fear, might I love her better in the time she had left? Would removing the rot preserve the fruit? The question festered until I turned back. I guided Mason to the gate and told a ticket boy with crow feathers in his hair to keep him safe. Then I sprinted toward the exitless maze. My pulse drummed. Choose carefully. The usher weighed me with molten eyes. Admission? I withdrew nothing tangible, only cupped my palms and summoned a fragment. Grandma's last lucid morning. She was in her garden, fingers buried in soil the color of espresso. Tomatoes glistened like rubies. She laughed when a worm wriggled onto her wrist. Life insists, she'd said, pressing the worm to her heart before laying it gently back. That memory was my lantern on nights when her mind clouded, proof that she hadn't always been lost. I offered it. Rich fare, the usher murmured, and blew across my hands. The memory evaporated in a gust of petrichor. He ushered me in. The maze walls were living vellum, tattooed with ink that shifted. I saw newspaper clippings of the first man I ever loved, pictures of the house I might have bought in Seattle, a recipe for the soup my mother made when Dad left. Each time I focused, the text blurred, siphoning significance. I walked until every direction looked identical, and every thought felt weightless.
In the maze's heart stood a wishing well. I peered down and saw the sky, eclipsed, ringed, infinite, staring up like an eye. A plaque read, "Drop what remains." I realized the true price wasn't a single memory, but the choice to abandon anchor entirely. Release enough ballast, and the rest would drift free. A scream spiderwebbed through the corridors, a child searching for her name. Another voice recited multiplication tables that shattered into nonsense halfway through. The well slurped, sated. Fear slithered resurrected. I sprinted back, retracing steps by instinct I didn't trust. The maze tried to redirect me. Corridors melted, arches narrowed. I pressed my palms against a wall and felt it pulse like a throat. With a heave, I stepped through as if through a membrane and tumbled onto the midway. The sky brightened. The moon slipped off the sun's face like a silken coin. A trumpet flourish signaled closing time. Patrons staggered out, luminous and empty. Some wept with laughter. Others smiled serenely. Private saints. Carnival stalls folded into shadows. The ringmaster tipped her hat at each departure, catching stray memories in her brim, the way children catch snowflakes. Mason waited, still dazed. I took his hand, and we crossed the field toward my car. Noon sunlight bloomed, yet the ground where the carnival stood already looked abandoned. Grass untrampled, air humming with cicadas not calliopes. "Where are we going?" he asked. "To the hospital," I lied. "Routine checkup." I couldn't make myself say home again. That word hung between us like a bridge whose planks had rotted. He rolled down the window, marveling at wind. "Feels like my first birthday," he said, though I knew he didn't remember any birthday. Back at the house, Grandma Rose sat in her recliner, staring at a muted television displaying a game show. I knelt and kissed her knuckles. She smiled politely. "Do you work here?" she asked. I opened the scrapbook. Flipping to the garden photograph, I kept glued to page 1. Her bright straw hat, eclipsing the sun as she knelt among tomatoes. My throat constricted. I'd planned to tell her how she laughed that morning, how life insists. But the picture might as well depict a stranger. I remembered the date, the weather, even the taste of the tea I'd brewed afterward. Yet the essence was gone. The warmth of her voice, saying those words, the way the worm curled in her palm. I had swapped substance for footnote. Tears came swift but silent. Across the room, Mason traced patterns on the window glass, murmuring at birds he couldn't name. Both of us were palimpsests, original stories scraped off to write new blankness. That night, after Grandma slept, and Mason rested on the couch like a man waiting for his files to download, I drove back to the fairgrounds. A logical part of me knew the carnival would be gone, summoned next, only when sun and moon conspired again. Still, I parked and stepped onto grass damp with dew. Nothing there but wind, and yet I smelled oranges and lightning. I shouted into the dark, "Take something else, give it back." My voice ricocheted unanswered. I dug my hands into soil where the Ferris wheel once stood, hoping to unearth leftover gears or marbles, or even the worm Grandma had rescued. My fingers closed on nothing but earth, cool and ordinary. I thought of the ringmaster's warning. Memories are slippery creatures, and once released, they find new hosts. Somewhere, perhaps 3 states over, a stranger might awaken tomorrow, picturing a woman in a tomato patch laughing over a worm. Mason's mother's lullaby could curl inside the throat of a busker who never learned that song. My first kiss might cling to the lips of a widower seeking comfort. The notion was both horror and benediction. We hadn't destroyed our memories, only freed them to pollinate other lives. On the drive home, I resolved to sew netting around what remained. I bought spiral notebooks by the dozen and wrote feverishly. Sensory details, conversations, addresses, jokes, injuries, recipes. I recorded Mason's favorite brand of coffee, though he no longer had a favorite anything. I cataloged every phrase Grandma muttered, even when they looped meaningless. Paper became my levy against future eclipses. Weeks passed. The town returned to mundane orbit. School buses, lawnmowers, Sunday sermons. Yet I'd catch glimmers, a calliope chord hidden in a ringtone, a mirror flashing a younger self. Each time, the carnival winked from the corner of my eye. One afternoon, while grocery shopping, I heard a woman humming down the cereal aisle. The tune prickled my scalp, the lullaby Mason had forgotten. She pushed a cart holding twin toddlers who clapped along. I almost stopped her to ask the song's name, but the syllables tangled. Instead, I whispered, "Take good care of that memory." She smiled, puzzled, and wheeled away. Later, at a community garden, a volunteer, a teenage boy with soil-blackened nails, lifted a worm from a tomato bed and laughed, a laugh that vibrated in my hollowed chest like a bell struck just right. "Life insists," he said to no one in particular, before setting the worm gently back. I had to sit on my heels, breathing through the ache and wonder. I still dream of the maze. Sometimes I wander its corridors, retrieving scraps. The warmth of a July sun on my bare shoulders, the syllables of Mason's middle name, the fizz of soda on my tongue during a drive-in movie. I wake holding intangible trinkets that melt by breakfast. Yet I'm learning that hollowness isn't absence, it's potential, space for new stories. Grandma died in early winter, her last breath smelling faintly of peppermint. At the funeral, Mason, still unspooled but slowly weaving a new identity, held my hand. I read a eulogy assembled from journal pages, facts without the marrow of first-hand memory, but spoken aloud they grew muscle, became real enough to wrap around. People wept. I wept. The words did their work. After the burial, the sky dimmed briefly as a stray cloud crossed the sun, and my pulse hammered, half expecting calliope music on the wind. None came, but I caught my reflection in a car window and saw all my ages standing behind me, unanchored but present. I thought of carousel riders choosing which selves to display. Perhaps I could choose too. I placed a hand over my heart, feeling its steady complaint. The hollow there echoed, but it did not hurt so much. I whispered to the absent Carnival, to the next Eclipse, to whatever vendor might pitch a tent in my skull. I will come again, but next time I'll barter only what I can spare. The breeze stirred, smelling faintly of oranges and rain. Whether it carried agreement or dare, I couldn't tell. But I smiled, and the hollowness inside answered, ringing like a calliope note, sustained just long enough to promise another ride.